Enough time. We have our board members present.
The
So,
meeting is now being recorded.
all right, very good. This is Chairman Mike McCoo calling to order Board of Finance special meeting of Thursday, January 14th, 2021 at 7 p.m. We do not need to see alternates. And so we will go to present to speak. Any of you who are using video who would like to speak, feel free to wave your hand. We'll get to each of you. I see Mr. Jim Bulick. Why don't you go ahead?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Jim Bulick, 12 Laurel Drive. I just want to emphasize that this is a very important first step of the budget process. This guidance letter that goes out to the various boards, committees, and town departments, and it's very important that you guys take the time to review the local economic situation. That you review the grand list to figure out whether what's it doing. Is it growing? Is it flat? Is it declining? And where we stand with our revenues, where our anticipated revenues from the state of Connecticut. So you guys still have plenty of time to do this. Please take the time to debate this and go through this. I think you're going to find that our grand list is probably flat. We're probably going to get, or at least the state's probably signaling that they're going to be giving us the money that we're looking for. And you're probably going to find out that your inflation is running around 2%. And that there are a lot of people out of work at this point in time for various COVID situations, obviously. So please take the time to do that. One other comment, I noticed you guys recently set your calendar. I think there were a couple of participants, Stephanie and maybe Matt Clark, who couldn't attend one of the meetings. This was on April 6th. It's a public hearing. I think it's very important to hear feedback from the public. I think I would strongly recommend that you try to change that meeting. You can certainly move it back in time. You can move it to Thursday, April 1st, and then everybody can attend. It's very important for the board to hear comments from the public on the budget process. So that's my recommendation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Others, I think I saw Pete Latintich.
Peter Latintich, 97 Trask Road. Good evening. I too wanted to applaud the board for taking the steps to provide this guidance letter to the budget groups. I agree with Jim and the board that it's important to do something that the board has correctly done in Willington. I also want to emphasize that it's especially important this year because of the deep economic recession that we're in as a result of the pandemic. Many Willington residents and businesses are not experiencing increases at all. In fact, those people that have lost their businesses or their jobs are experiencing 100% decreases. No one's suggesting that in your budget, but it's something worth contemplating. Not recognized at all is, aside from those people experiencing the 100% decrease, are even more people who have experienced furloughs ranging from 10 to 75% because businesses are at half capacity or less. So those people are also experiencing huge decreases. So I strongly ask that you consider our residents' situation and not have increases in the town budget. That would seem like a victory to me. Lastly, I'll add, only because I work for a global corporation, and what we experienced last year, I'll share. Last year was a year where no one expected us to meet plan or stockholder expectations. That year has ended and the new year is here. And like many corporations, now return to normalcy, even though the economy hasn't done that. So we are preparing large scale reduction in our workforce because we are not meeting shareholder expectations and there's only one option left. So I don't think we're coming out of the recession this year. The prognosis is grim, and I strongly encourage you to recognize that in your deliberations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. I don't see anyone else. Yes, I do see other videos. Anyone else who would like to comment, present to speak, please wave your hand. Okay, anyone who is not showing up in video but is out there, if you would unmute and call out your name. Okay, not seeing anyone at this point. Let's move on to the next item in the agenda, which is one item of new business tonight, which is the guidance letter to budget submitting organizations. Board of Finance members did receive a letter that I had drafted, which was essentially a updating of last year's guidance letter. And that led to an expression of interest in the board that we have a meeting for this. That was the reason we called a special meeting, because we're getting late in the season. I do apologize. I drafted this originally in December and then left it out of the agenda by mistake. So here we are. Board member comments. Stephanie, I saw you raising your hand.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's an appropriate backdrop for an axe to be over the head of the Board of Finance chair.
Oh, literally.
Is it a
I'm not
good
sure how to answer
message?
that. Should I position so it looks right in, like it's stuck in my head?
Then you're a hatchet head, yeah.
Yeah. All right, thank you for that very valuable comment. Anybody else?
Well, we can go dreary now. We can be dreary now, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, bring the dreary.
Speaking of dreary, point of order, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion that we table this discussion on this letter until our regularly scheduled meeting on the 21st. I think that it's already late, so we're only picking up 1 week. And I think that we have to give this letter the time and attention it deserves and debate that it deserves. We're done. What I thought a guidance letter was giving guidance. There's no guidance in this letter. It doesn't say anything about what we expect in terms of budget levels. So I think, if we're going to do guidance, we should base it on, economics and our situation and the current situation that we're in. And I think that's better done in a regularly scheduled meeting when everybody's had a chance to prepare, instead of in a special meeting and trying to get this out really, really quickly. In my experience, my 35 years of experience in business, rushing to get things done, it never works out well. It's better to take the measured approach and do this the right way.
okay. So could we focus on, did you actually make that as a motion?
Yes, I just made that as a motion.
Okay, could you just repeat the specific motion that you want without the rest of the discussion so we can be sure we get exactly what you want as the motion?
Sure. I would move that we table discussion and approval of the Board of Finance guidance letter to budgetary authorities in the town of Wellington until our next regularly scheduled meeting on the 21st.
Okay, can I get a second for discussion?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table this one agenda item to the next meeting. I'll start discussion on that. This is a process we do every year. I agree it deserves careful deliberation, but it is the beginning of the process, and regardless of what we put in the guidance letter, people will submit. And then we'll spend the rest of the budget season debating all of these same things. We also have had it on our radar, at least for since last week when the email went out. And we called this meeting for this purpose. So my feeling is we do this tonight, but I'm interested to hear what other board members feel. Stephanie?
I feel like we should at least begin the conversation tonight, because there's a lot to discuss about it. And I'm also concerned about delivering guidance, right at the time of deadline. I don't think it, I think it could throw the schedule off pretty easily, because we're asking people, I mean, our first presenters are coming, what is it, the 4th, February
February
4th?
4th.
And they obviously we've asked them to deliver their budgets a week ahead. So that's the 28th. So basically they'd be getting less than a week to react. So that doesn't work from my idea of project managing, but I do understand the concerns. And I think, there may be information we need to consider, but I don't think that I think we should move ahead. I think we should at least progress tonight and get some of the issues out on the table instead of pushing it all off to the 21st when we have other things to do there too. That's just my thought.
Matt?
Yeah, we can adjust the schedule. We can, it's better to adjust the schedule than to try and cram this in and get a decision tonight.
Okay, other board comments on the motion to table?
Forgive me, but what do we have for the 21st next week? Pending. I know you don't have an agenda, obviously, but.
Yeah, I don't, there is nothing in the email traffic or contacts that I have received as chairman to put anything new or unique on the agenda. That typically, as you know, comes in the last few days before. So I would assume if someone has something they want to add to the agenda, likely I'm going to hear about it tomorrow or Monday.
Well, Matt suggested several things on that agenda, I think. I
Yes,
think there was
a lot
like
of that-
4 things he wanted to discuss, and they were in, economical indicators and
Yeah, so
CCM
let me-
reports. Yeah.
I'm sorry, let me correct my statement a little bit. You make a good point, Stephanie. We don't have any requests from outside of the board, is what I meant.
Okay,
So new people introducing new business. The items that Matt suggested are, some of those are already part and parcel of the conversation that we would be having. So all 4 of those items wouldn't be new anyway. But yeah, we don't have anyone from outside requesting us to consider new topics is what I meant. Matt, was that what you were gonna, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And to my mind, they are new. I'd like to have a specific section dedicated to presenting economic analysis of our situation so that the board can make good decisions about shepherding our resources. I think that it's very, very important. I rushed, anticipating that this wouldn't be tabled. I rushed today. So I spent 6 hours today working on Board of Finance business, trying to put this together. It's not as good as it would be, but I'm prepared to present tonight as well.
Other discussions on the motion to table? All right, Marissa?
Mike, I'm sorry, I couldn't find my mute button fast enough.
Okay,
There.
Pete, go ahead.
I think that I agree with Matt that this is probably something we should table, but I'm not sure we should table it at this point. I'd like to start this discussion tonight at least, and then at the end of it, see whether we've reached a point where we're comfortable with a decision or not. And if we're not, then continue this discussion next week at a regular meeting. But I think that, we should at least consider not completing, if we haven't completed our discussion tonight, then tabling it at the very end. I'm not sure whether I'm prepared to vote at this point to table or not. If I was going to vote right now, I'd vote to table, but I don't know where the rest of the discussion's going.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
Yeah, I think it'll fail. So I'll remove delete my motion. We can move forward.
All right, so Matt, you're rescinding your motion?
Yep.
All right,
Save everyone some time.
okay. So we are still on this item of guidance letter to budget submitting organizations. If you think back over the years, this has been done a few different ways. Sometimes the board comes out with a percentage recommendation. For example, cap your request at 3% increase or cap your request at 0% increase. We chose not to do that last year because we had so many unknowns. And of course, we didn't even know what we were getting into at that point. So the letter that you saw proposed for this year was almost the same as last year because we just didn't know. The state was late on getting us some of the projections. And so here we are to try to figure out if we're more generic or more specific. And for specific, what do we want to push people towards? Keeping in mind, they're going to submit what they submit anyway. But I think any guidance we can is valuable. Other comments? Matt?
Yeah, I'd like to make the suggestion that we actually have some kind of a financial parameter at the end of this process, we have some kind of financial parameter, some kind of financial guidance as to what we think is appropriate for different departments in the town, whether that's, -3, 0, +3. We as a group should give them some kind of guidance, because what happens, I think what's going to happen. I watched today on video, the Public Works Department present to the Board of Selectmen, and they came up with a 20% increase. Without any kind of guidance, that's what everybody will do, and I don't think that's appropriate. It's not a good idea. So I would like that to happen. And I'll state again, I can present data today from the Connecticut Council of Municipalities, presentation by the professor of economics and finance at UConn, outlining the dire, horrible situation our economy is in and our state budgets are in.
And what form do you have that presentation in?
It's a PowerPoint, it's 10 pages.
Okay. Yeah, if you feel that you can, I know you felt like you were rushed to put it together. If you feel like you can kind of buzz through that, and then if you have something that you want to present, continue this discussion. Even if we decide tonight on what to put the letter in, this discussion continues through the rest of budget season.
I understand. Yeah, I can do that fairly quickly. So it'll probably be like 6 minutes or something like that.
All right, so you want a screen share?
I think I can do, host is disabled. Yeah, you got to let me first.
Yeah, I'm working on that right now. Marissa, how do I let him screen share?
You, I think, open up participants.
Oh, here we go. Stand by, Matt.
Yep,
Try it now. See if you have an option.
I do. So it's telling me what do I want to share. Screen 2, I think, right? Okay, one moment, please. Just a second.
Okay.
Are you? Yes, you can see this, can't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think this is gonna
F5 us, and there you go. All right.
So yeah, this is all based on the Connecticut Council of Municipalities Economic Outlook data, and also the Office for Fiscal Analysis. It's a legislative support group. There's 16 people running around doing reports on budgetary analysis. That's the sources for this. This is not me. It's not my opinions. It's real data. So unemployment. So today, unemployment initial claims for benefits jumped to nearly 1 million this week. And that's from the Wall Street Journal today. So as of mid-December, unemployment rate in Connecticut was 8.2% and ticking up. As we know from other times that we've talked about this, the actual unemployment rate, not the headline, not the 8.2%, the actual unemployment rate is about 5 or 6 percentage points higher than that. Well, 3 or 4 percentage points higher than that. It doesn't count people who are self-employed well at all. So, and that unemployment, this is my own editorial comment, that unemployment is concentrated among low-income people that work in services, hospitalities, restaurants, and things like that. And those are the people who can least afford to be unemployed. Sad, but that's the way it is. From the Office of Fiscal Analysis report, large deficits are projected to deplete the $3 billion budget reserve fund in 3 years. Pandemic has adversely affected our budget for years to come. They're projecting the general fund deficits of more than $2 billion in each of the next 3 fiscal years.
Matt?
Yeah.
So just a quick question. I just want to verify that the number you talked about before for unemployment was nationwide, right? The 1 million, the approaching 1 million, whereas this is Connecticut, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm understanding which group these are covering. Got it.
Sure.
Thank you.
So in my, again, it's my own opinion, but I would say that it's probably much worse in Connecticut. In other words, we're probably overrepresenting because our economy isn't growing. Other economy, Texas, other economies are growing. Ours is shrinking. So I would say that even though our, these unemployment rates are ticking up to 8.2% nationally, ours is probably worse, but I have no data on that. So, and the latest data on the Department of Labor's, the Connecticut Department of Labor's website is for November. So there's no data there for December yet, but I could find. So anyway, back to the first bullet point on this slide. So they're projecting $2 billion of budget deficits each year for the next 3 years. And they're projecting that it will be entirely depleted. I think they'll have $38 million left in fiscal year, starting fiscal year 2022. So we have 2021 and then 2022, and then they're going to be down to $38 million. Not good. The update for 21, they're saying here that there's a historic economic downturn. It's going to continue to affect our economy. The consensus revenues were downgraded by $1.5 billion from budget. And that was partially offset by 346 million below budget. So they're coming out at about almost $1 billion, $850 million budget deficit for 2021. That's their forecast. This right here, I don't know if you can see this. Can I do this? Yeah, you can see my cursor, right?
Yes.
So this number right here, that's our deficit. Between this number and this number, that's our deficit projected for 2021. Here's what happens in 2022. The spending continues to rise and the revenue continues to fall. So we're looking at an expanded deficit level for the state of Connecticut. Barring any, that something could happen. I mean, we could land an Amazon, headquarters like New York did, or we could have. We could, have, we could have a war, which would be great for our defense business. I don't know. I mean, these things could change, but right now, barring any kinds of big changes, we're looking at budget deficits for 2022, 2023, and 2024. These are what they are. They're about $2 to $2.5 billion each year. So that's from the Office of Fiscal Analysis. And this is what I take of my takeaways from the presentation by Dr. Fred Garstensen, professor of economics at UConn. He's the one that gave the presentation to the Connecticut Council of Municipalities. He's saying we flatlined in Connecticut. Our economy has shrank by 9.1% since 2008, and we've never recovered the jobs. We're still below where we were in 2008, so 12 years ago. So, and this is a quote from him: "If you want to start a new school, which we do, or get a new fire truck. If the state doesn't have economic growth, it's not going to have the resources to pay for new schools or new fire trucks. And right now, the Connecticut economy is not growing. They did a forecast. It's a long-range forecast, and he indicates it's very unclear about where we're going in this kind of environment. And that's 3 weeks ago. I'm listening to this today on video, and he says this is him talking. Yesterday we had 853,000 initial unemployment claims. That's an increase of over 100,000. And then I put in parentheses, that's 3 weeks old. So he said this 3 weeks ago. So 3 weeks ago, we had 850,000 initial jobless claims. Today, they're reporting that we have almost 1 million initial jobless claims. It's not getting better. So again, these are quotes from the UConn professor. This is pretty dire. We think it's very possible that Connecticut will not recover significantly for a decade, 10 years. We are looking at that kind of long-term challenge. The data in this report that I'm going over right now is based on OPM, Office of Policy Management, and OFA, which I just reviewed previously. Jobs added since 2008 have been in low-wage hospitality services distribution, not in finance, manufacturing, or information technology. So here he is. He's saying this is the economic, the budget forecasts of tax revenues, economic growth rates of projected tax revenues. And this is based on OPM, and this is November 10th, 2020. And what they're saying is, I don't know what this is. This doesn't make sense to me. This estimates, and final. Apparently our PhD professor doesn't spell too well. So anyway, and then sales tax. So in 2021, we're going to have decreases in all three of these tax revenue sources. And then they project it going up here. And then he says, this assumes underlying economic growth at least matching the revenue growth pre-pandemic. Most forecasts anticipate slowing national growth. What he's saying is these are rosy, rosy, rosy forecasts right here. Now I'll go to this column. These data suggest strong growth. I've asked OPM and OFA to share with me underlying economic forecasts. They have not done so. I'm going to continue asking for the underlying assumptions because these numbers don't make sense right here. So I think what he's saying is we're more likely to see more of a continuation of tax revenue decreases rather than these rosy projections that they have in these lines right here. This is a chart that has on the left-hand column real gross state products. This is the economic activity in the state right here. And this one right here is population. So this, and here's our population. It goes up, 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 all the way to 2012, evens out, and now we're losing population, fewer taxpayers. And here's our economic gross state product, which had a really great run, wonderful, all the way through till 2009. And then it dropped off and it hasn't recovered since. And again, in my right-hand column over here, we had the worst economic performance of any state since 2008. We shrank for 7 years. We got creamed. Connecticut never engaged in data-driven, digitally dependent, modern economy. For example, he gives an example. There are no data centers in Connecticut. That's my previous business. We sold, $80 and $100 million data centers to municipality, to countries, large corporations, and purveyors and things. So there's trunk lines going through Connecticut, data lines, big, huge pipes full of data, and there's no off ramp. It's like going out. He said going like going down I-95 with no exit ramps. And then he says we've flatlined in Connecticut. This is the projected deficits for 2021, 22, 23, and 24. They're saying, this is OPM and OFA, they're saying that there's aggregate deficits are going to be $7.2 billion over the next, 4 years. And I'll go into the right-hand column. Our econ professor is saying it's more likely probably going to be 10 billion. These are too rosy. Tax receipts this year were impacted by early stock selling. Everyone sold their stocks in the beginning of the year, and that meant capital gains. So this number right here in 2020 we did okay. We broke even. We had a flat in terms of our deficit. One of the reasons is everyone sold their stock, and we got capital gains taxes based on that. That's not a recurring event. So these are rosy, as rosy as it gets, and it still looks bad. We have an economy that is shrinking at 0.5% compounded each year. So my conclusions from this, I'm interested in what everyone else thinks. I look at it and I go, we can't assume that we're going to be getting the same levels of transfer payments from the state. Either they're going to cut a whole bunch of stuff out because they don't have any money, or they're going to raise taxes. So I don't know. I mean, Connecticut's economy is stagnant. That's the best case. I mean, it's shrinking actually. Let's just say it's stagnant. It's not growing, and it's likely to remain that way. We need to be very, very careful about taxation and about spending. If the state is in a dire situation, if they raise taxes, that impacts our citizens' ability to pay higher property taxes. They're going to get hit twice if we raise their taxes. So anyway, those are there's some data as a backdrop for our decision making, and those are my preliminary conclusions. You can take the ball back, Mike, and I'm interested in what everyone else thinks. How do I do this? Oh, there you go. Good.
I'm always pleasantly surprised when I manage the technology correctly.
Yeah, was that depressing enough for everyone?
Yeah, you brought it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I want to add a couple comments to that. I have seen some similar information from what Matt shared. And I always try to figure out what is the balance, what is also our local situation. And I think the understanding about what the state might bring us in revenue is really critical. That's a huge impact on our budget. And then also, what is our local impact? And I know we get updated information regularly, and it'll continue to update as far as things like over the next couple of months, we'll learn how our collection is going for the January installment. Plus, we also have a potential delay on January payments. So there's still some mystery there so far. We've done well with tax collection. Our collection rates have been amazing. And with the rate houses are selling in town, hopefully collection rate continues. Certainly if one of the houses that owed anything, it got paid, because that always gets caught in the real estate transaction. But again, those are, we don't know all those answers yet. What we do know is houses are selling like crazy. People are coming to Willington. I talked to one family a couple of days ago, and they said the house was on the market 2 days, sold for asking price without the people coming to look at it. They were people who wanted it badly enough that they looked at it by the pictures and bought it. And we actually were at a point last week where there was 0 residential properties, not necessarily land, but livable, homes, whatever. 0 residential properties on the multiple listing service for a period of a few days, which is essentially unheard of. Willington averages 20 properties typically on the MLS at any one time. So hopefully there's a little local encouraging news. So far, most businesses that we can see have been managing to hang on, but as has been discussed before, we don't always know at what level, if they have furloughed employees. And the people who do things like consulting jobs and self-employed, we don't know their situation because, as has been discussed already, we don't always have a good way to capture that data. My consulting work is picking up, and I'm not sure what that means. Most of it is private financing and private organizations. So I don't know if that tells us anything. I think last year, most of my work was for public organizations. As far as the condition of our own current budget, I emailed out to all the board members the reports I got from our treasurer and from Donna. And so you have some information if you've had an opportunity to look at it yet. And
Mike?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I got the report from Lori here.
Yes.
And I am not going to pretend to understand it in its entirety or even in many of its particulars. The one thing that I did notice was that anything with a parenthesis around it is unfavorable in that last column, and every single number in that column has a parenthesis around it. And I assume that means that everything's unfavorable, but I don't know what that means.
So I think we should get clarity on that, but my understanding is that that is essentially yet to be received.
Okay.
But if anyone else has clarity on that, feel free.
Well, I would just throw in, because I ran these figures a little bit. It looks to me, and Donna can correct this, but it looks to me that it means that we've received 64% of our projected property tax revenue already 6 months into the year. And that bottom line, it looks like it's right about 60% of revenue received based on our 2020, our 21-22 projections. So, you know, that seems to me to be tracking pretty well. ECS is only a quarter in, and I don't really know what the pacing is on ECS money coming in. So I don't know if that's weird or not. There's no year-to-year comparison there, but still, our bottom, even counting that, our bottom line on revenues is about 60% in as expected. So
Are we talking about the same thing here? I mean,
yeah, the Lori Semper bond.
The statement of revenues to general fund, the bottom right corner, the bottom line is called total revenues.
Yeah. Okay.
And I believe, Stephanie, right? That's the one you're reading?
Yep.
Okay.
Because, for instance, it's basically saying that we have about 10 million of the 17 million expected already in budget. We're, already received.
Okay.
So that's about 60% of the year at 50% of the year.
So I have another question that came up based on what Stephanie just said. Are we under a state mandate, pass down, general order, whatever they call it, so that people don't have to pay their taxes on time right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the only answer I was looking for. And the second question I have coming up is, have we had an executive order, anything like last year, where we don't know whether the town will be voting on this budget or not? Because that would go into my thinking on what we're going to be giving in guidance. Because if the town's going to have no say in the end, I think we should strive as hard as we can to maintain a zero. That's just
Erica, are you able to jump on and update us on any
I can
orders?
tell you there's nothing formal in place yet. That was a hot topic in the last 2 governors' calls we have had, asking if there would be an executive order similar to last year. What we heard yesterday was that while they may make some caveats and changes, that the goal was to try as best as possible to have in-person voting. If we were, we were able to vote in November, that they thought most municipalities could hold voting in person, and there may be a hybrid option to go with that.
So
Thank you, Erica.
You're
so I called the assessor. I forget his name. Walter, is it? Is it Walter?
Yeah.
I called Walter and I asked him about what the expectations are for the grand list moving forward. And he indicated that he doesn't prepare, his reports are due at the end of January, after our next Board of Finance meeting. So I asked him, okay, fine, that's cool. But what's your expectations? What do you think is going to happen? He says, yeah, I think it's going to be flat. It's going to be zero. And we're not going to have any increase in our grand list. I also called Lori Semplebond and asked her about whether or not we've had any changes. That's probably what this is. But whether or not we were anticipating any changes in state reimbursements, how are they going? Are they holding back on anything? Any changes that you can foresee? And she said, no, there's no changes and we don't foresee any.
Okay.
Just a comment on Stephanie, not directly to Steph, but from Lori's report there. It all sounds rosy, what percentage has already come in from property taxes. How many of those are actually automatic? Because if you have a mortgage, it's coming right out. If you're paying your mortgage, it's automatic.
Right.
So, to say like, oh, we're doing great, everything's fine, and wonderful. I mean, is it?
Well, yeah, I think we're going to learn a lot at the end of January, because a lot of the mortgage companies wait till the last day of January to make their payments. I'm sure that they earn some sort of interest on all that money during the month of January. And they seem to pay everything right around like literally the last day of the month.
Well, yeah, they will, but if people stop paying their mortgages, that's a whole different story. And the people that pay on their own,
What I was going to say is the opportunity for people to defer 3 months could potentially affect us. Hopefully, what we learned last fall with the July to October 1st delay, hopefully that carries true. It was pretty successful and most of the collection came in even without waiting the 3 months. But I don't know. We're definitely going to learn something by the end of January. We'll have a good idea, and then obviously there'll be 2 more months where some people will have deferred. But we're going to obviously by that time we're going to be almost done with budget season. So we are similar to our Board of Ed budget requirements, MBR. We are going to have to do some of this on best guess estimates.
Can I make one more comment? Just on, in terms of economic forecast, it's going to be stagnant at best. You're not going to see economic growth. I tell people I'm a bad example as a small business owner because it's just me. But anybody that's in a business of my size, you're looking towards the future. There's nothing. When you have economic uncertainty, there's no incentive. You're holding on to your money. You're not going to do another project. You're not going to look to grow. You're not going to look to hire. You're putting your hands in your pockets and you're holding your breath. That's all you're going to do. So it's going to be stagnant at best. And the worst thing about this is, as much money that was pumped into this economy, at some point you're going to have to pay that back. You're going to see inflation.
Huge inflation.
Yeah.
At some point.
And the other thing, and as and it all trickles down. Let's give you the trickle down theory. Anybody that's self-employed, your deductions are going to start going away, and that's a big thing for people to think about.
Yeah.
Your tax deductions. So it's going to be stagnant at best.
Mike?
Yes.
Another topic that came up. I'm sorry, my ADD's kicking in here. Is this a year that we're going to be renegotiating contracts for employees, town employees?
I believe, I remember all the discussion last year about the one-year MOU that extended the town employees. The one-year MOU with the 2% raise. Do you remember all that discussion?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that puts us at this year,
Okay.
and the need to address that expiring contract.
Okay. That may come into the equation where we may have to, although most people are having their pay remain flat. Most people in the private sector are at flat or minus.
Yeah.
Many people in the public sector don't see that as a reality option. So we may have to take some percentage above current pay into account for budgeting purposes. I'm not saying, Matt, before you say anything, I'm not saying that I think that what we should be doing is striving for perhaps zero in the first year of the contract, but I don't know if that's a reality or not. I just really don't. Thank you.
Yeah, I think appropriating the funds and planning for the funds on the Board of Finance sends a clear signal that we've already anticipated this, and we agree, and here's what you should shoot for, the exact amount that we appropriated.
Stephanie, you had your hands up?
I just wondered where we are in the education union contracts. Are we in the second of 3 years? Are we in the third of 3 years?
We knew that answer last year and I don't remember it.
Okay. Does anyone else remember that? Maybe Donna or?
Erica, you don't happen to know where we are on the educational contract cycle, do you?
No, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
And
I'm going to
The-
guess
and
we
the
have
other
one more
thing-
year left.
okay. And the other thing is we should factor in the impact of the stair stepping on the minimum wage.
Yes.
There's another thing people are going to be talking about, business owners.
Right. So back to the, just going back to the documents we received so far. There was also a statement of revenue, expenditures, and changes in fund balance from Donna. And that is sort of an overall general capture of the budget, and at the bottom has the section on the fund balance, which it looks like for this current fiscal year is going to be 14.9%, which I did some quick math, and that is $533,000 over our policy-driven 12% cap. So that, I know that's something we spend a lot of time discussing throughout this budget process. That money is in the current year budget. That leads into a conversation about the budget we are now planning. And I just want to draw attention to that, that the that fund is significantly above the 12%.
I think what we want to do is make sure that we're just not spending that because we have it. We overtaxed our residents on that based on the governor's promising that the we'd be paying some of the teacher retirement benefits, which it didn't end up paying, but we did not give the taxpayers their money back or cut the mill rate. So I want to make sure that we're not just seeing this as a jackpot and adding to it from there. As a matter of fact, I would dearly like to see us reduce that through a tax cut rather than through a spending increase.
Right.
I second Peter's sentiment.
We did give a little bit back in the current fiscal year budget. We applied 600,000 of it back into the budget, which allowed some unstoppable expenses such as those 2% raises and other things were allowed to be paid for and still give a very slight reduction in taxation. So we have returned a little bit of that money, but I agree, we clearly have more money in there, which means either we're not spending in the right places or we're taxing too much. And different people will interpret that balance in different places, but that's what it means. There's too much tax dollars in here compared to what is being spent.
In addition to that, though, I think that we should consider the state of our capital budget and our capital spending programs, because they pretty much flatlined. And I think a lot of the projects that are on the table have been in there for decades, and some certainly for several years, that are pretty bad ones to be having hanging for 5 or 6 years. And I think what we did agree to do, and we pulled back on this for this year, was to make up for the flatlining of the pool of money that we use in CIP. It's been 500,000 for ages and with very little growth, if any. And we talked about bringing that number up to 550 or 600 going forward, because we've just got too many crumbling things going on in town. I mean, there are things that we obviously have to look at, what's the balance in how we spend the money, how much is going to vehicles and equipment, how much is going to other things in town that need attention. But I really think that we just haven't been watching that part of a healthy fiscal plan for a town. And I think that some of that fund balance needs to address the capital budget. And frankly, that's one of the few ways we can stimulate the local economy.
Okay, more discussion?
You guys hear me?
Yes.
I was just looking at the budget calendar, and so March 4th is the day that the revenue projection presenters will be letting us know. So it's like right now we can guess where things are going, and we can sort of look at the direction things are headed, but we're not really going to know as much as we're going to know on March 4th, which is why we always have the actual revenue presentation after we hear the requests. So I just wanted to point that out, because that's when we get all the detail from the town treasurer and our business manager.
Right.
Mike, can I address a point in the guidelines specifically that I think is missing?
In the guidance letter?
Yes.
Yes, you may.
And because frankly, this came up a lot with the way Public Works did its planning last year, and to an extent this year. But when I was budgeting for the Hartford Current, we called it new programs. But basically, if you're wanting to do an expansion or a plan that goes over a few years for taking on more road work or tree trimming or whatever, and it's basically a growth in your town services, you present it as almost a separate program, but you definitely factor in related budget expense. And in that case, like, instead of, if you're going to add a lot of vehicles, you're going to probably have to add drivers and staff. And that's exactly, what that's got to be factored in, because there's sort of fallout costs to adding personnel always and growing that way. So I just feel like our budgeting process misses that. I'm not saying we're in a big expansion year, but just in general, I think I don't see a lot of, when people are proposing things, and particularly expenses like that, I don't see the sort of full school of thought that goes into that big of an expansion. So I don't know if there's some way to say, please list or talk to your co-department heads who you're going to be affecting with your idea, and give us the full array of costs that will be a part of this. Because I don't feel like that's in there.
I'm not quite sure I understand that completely, but I think I agree.
I know it's shocking, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I've gone through this once, partially, and now we're starting a second time. And Stephanie is right. I mean, when you do this in business, you have written explanations and rationales for why you're doing what you're doing, and we don't get any of that. It's verbal. I mean, so the people, when they present, they go, "Here's the reason why I'm asking for this." We can't remember all that stuff. So I think, Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's part of what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is kind of justifying how you're doing it and how fast. Like, and in the case of Public Works, they can present, and he did give us some information about what it's going to reduce in costs. That's the key, But also in some cases, it's maybe it is a growth area in town that needs to happen. So.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Finish, Stephanie.
No, I'm done.
Okay, sorry. So I think what I'm hearing is really two things. One is similar to item number 4 that says prepare to specifically justify new spending that could lead to savings. Stephanie, I think one of your points was to justify or know anything new that would create an effect somewhere else. Right?
Yeah, related budget expense. Yeah.
Related. Okay, give me a moment to just write note.
And then you could say such as personnel, benefits, software, whatever, that could affect another department, or like.
Yeah.
So if something is proposed in the budget that will cause an increase elsewhere.
Or decrease.
Well, we already are saying that, but we're adding the conversation about what are you doing that might cause an increase downstream.
Yeah, number 4 is savings, so maybe number 5, and then the, could be include, related budget expense elsewhere in your budget or the budget of another department.
Right.
And then 6 would be, please submit your budget a week early before the presentation.
Yeah, I'll touch the elephant in the room. I think we should include in the letter that direction, guidance to budget submitters that they should have a 0% increase in their budgets.
All right, so hang on. I just want to get the second point that came out of that last conversation. So the first point was the downstream increase. The second point that Matt, you talked about a lot was not getting a written explanation.
Yeah, I mean, usually there's a discussion. Think about an annual report that you read when you get.
Right. Yeah, I know. I'm right. I'm agreeing with you, and I'm trying to figure out how we, we almost could add another column maybe to the spreadsheet that's sent to the departments.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think what you do is you just simply say, provide us with a paragraph where there's a change, or an initiative, or a cut, or an increase. Give me a paragraph. Help me understand what's it about. Right, Stephanie?
Yeah, well, and a lot of people have done it. I mean, if you remember the registrars whose fees we raised, but it was a good year to do it. They went point by point. This is where we can save some money in training, but this is where we're definitely going to see more costs. And
right.
And you knew exactly what you were. They just had their plan together.
Yeah,
okay. Time out. Order, please. I was in the middle of the sentence trying to explain exactly that. So let's make sure people to finish the sentences here. What I was saying about adding the extra column, Matt, is if we put one more column to the right, on there in the spreadsheet, the last column right now is the percentage of increase or decrease over the previous budget year. If we put one more column that was designed to be text and said, please fill in column L or whatever it is with an explanation of why that line item changed. Is that what we're looking for? The only reason I'm asking it in that way is that you put the explanation right next to the item, as opposed to relying on people bringing anywhere from 10 to 50 line items of information down to a separate paragraph.
Yeah, we can handle it any way the group wants to. I don't want to have, 50 lines of text. So let's take, for example, what I listened to today on the public works. There was probably 3 major areas. So there'll be 3 paragraphs. I don't want to have, he asked for more people, increases in chip seal and maintenance, and there's a couple of other, I can't remember. But so you just where there's major changes, give us a paragraph on it, and I don't want to have one for each line, or one for each cut, or one for each increase. Only the major ones.
Okay, other board members on your thoughts on that? Maybe the idea is that as we review, if we see a line that's not addressed in the paragraph, we ask that question, or do other people want line by line? It's different ways in different years. Some people want to review line by line. Some people want a summary. Lisa?
I think, all the ideas I'm hearing are terrific. I just think that you have to go slower. Like, Matt, I think Matt in what he's requesting, a presentation that he's requesting, is very business oriented, which I totally respect and understand. But I think when you're talking about a $17 million book of business, every line item does matter, Matt. And I think sharing resources is a really great place to start. And I think that one of the things that, I don't know how we do this, but one of the things that I've seen over the years of being a part of the Board of Finance is that the shared resources come to conversation during the budget season. And unfortunately, every single week is a different department. So there's like, what's missing is that there's not like a round table of all the different departments of the town. Like, it seems like everybody's in a silo in Wellington, and what conversations have been, did anybody have, was there ever a conversation held to say, hey, we have all of these things that we're not going to use anymore, or we have, you guys get what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Or is it just not possible because we are operating with $17 million and there's just only so much that you can pepper everywhere? So rather than, I think this conversation is excellent. And I think everybody here, after 1 year of hearing everybody, I think everybody truly has the best interest of the town. I really think that that's the case. And I'm looking forward to this season because we have 1 year of experience of working together already, so that we can get more productive, but I just think killing it or beating it to death doesn't make sense. And I guess I just wanted to set that up front. Like, you can scrub and you can scrub and you can scrub, Matt, but if you're really looking at it as a business point of view, you're looking at your spend down, right? The most expensive part of it is the labor for the teachers, their benefits, and then the town labor. I mean, that's really what you're looking at. That's the biggest chunk. And we know year after year that we really can't, it's very difficult to affect. And by the way, I did ask if this was a year that the union negotiates, and it is. This summer, 2021 is a negotiation year for the union, and the buses will be done prior to that. So I just asked Michelle Cunningham, who talked to Phil, just so you all know. Okay, so anyway, that was my 2 cents. It's just like we like dig down and needle and needle and needle. And I think it's important. But I think we all know that this is a COVID year. And I think that we all know that people are struggling. But it may be that in Wellington, people aren't struggling. And maybe Stephanie is pointing something out, that maybe the people of Wellington are better off because we don't have an excessive budget, and we never did. And we always did live within our means. And so maybe this is the year to support our people. And maybe this is the year to take tiny steps and to continue responsible growth and not be so afraid of everything. So that was just, that's just what I want to say.
Unsurprisingly, I disagree. I don't think this is the year to take baby steps and grow. I think that is, be honest with you, it's disrespectful to the people who are suffering badly right now. Connecticut, Wellington has twice the poverty rate of the rest of Connecticut. You drive our cities, drive our towns, look at our houses.
You know what though, Matt? Why is that? Did you go down and dig deeper? Is it because we have fixed income seniors? And how many?
It very well may be, and if we have.
But then they're fixed income, and we have to work around it. Well, listen, Matt, if you're not willing to come out and share ideas.
I am sharing ideas.
All right, well, don't get so annoyed.
Well,
don't get so annoyed.
Okay, fine. So it is my opinion that we should not be increasing spending in the worst economy of my lifetime. And to say anecdotally that I don't think that Wellington is that bad off, I don't believe it. I think it is.
Well, Stephanie just read to you real numbers. Those are facts. We are better than 50% already in our collection, period.
Okay.
Not going to last.
So therefore we should raise taxes because everybody's paying their taxes?
Okay.
I don't know. I just don't want you to be the naysayer this year. It was a long year last year. That's my 2 cents.
I'm representing the people of Wellington in their interest in the Board of Finance discussions, and I'm not a naysayer.
All right, let's put some focus on the question at hand. Stephanie?
Oh, I just wanted to ask if Erica can update us on the local unemployment figures in Wellington itself.
I'll certainly let her chime in, but I looked today, I couldn't find any online, any new ones.
No, they typically come out, Mike, as you know, about the day after your meeting. So I expect next Friday we'll see them.
What was the last one? Do you remember, Erica?
I can tell you, give me 1 second while I click screens here.
Was it the 5.6 or was it the 6.4?
So November had Wellington at 5.7, which represented 211 unemployed.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I think it's reasonable to expect that employment for December is not going to look all that bad. Unemployment is not going to look all that bad for December, only because of all the seasonal workers. They added a lot of seasonal workers for, like FedEx and things like that. Not that all those people live in Wellington, of course, but there probably is a little bit of a soft boost there. But that number, that was probably a bubble. And those numbers will be gone in January is my guess.
But Mike, didn't you just say that Wellington has no open homes? Didn't you say people are buying sight unseen?
Yes.
Those people must have a lot of money, and this must be a very attractive place to live. And if we have 20 more houses filled with people, that's 20 more houses of tax revenue.
Well, hopefully, right. Well,
they were filled before.
Right. Matt, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I think to say that we've hit a good spot or things that picked up in December because of distribution flies in the face of what I presented just 45 minutes ago. We had 1 million new jobless claims in America. It's huge. It's not.
Yes, but I was talking about Wellington, not America.
Well, okay.
And I was talking about essentially an artificial bubble. I was just trying to talk about all the facts in Wellington because we have a huge employer that hires seasonal. Maybe they hired 100,000 and the rest of the country lost 1.1 million. And that 100,000 in Wellington balanced it out.
Mike?
Yes.
I just have two quick things. One's on topic and one's moving on to the next topic. One is that rate of returns on property taxes reflects not only the health of the economy, but the fact that if you don't pay your taxes, there are severe consequences that a lot of people are looking to avoid, regardless of their financial solubility. So
Yes.
I don't know if tax payment rate is a 1-to-1 ratio of how healthy we're doing. The second one is that I don't know if we can add this in as a line as guidance, but to make sure that people prioritize their own budgets, not coming to us saying, well, what do you want us to cut? I don't want to make that decision for the department. If we can't fund the department at the level that they're asking us for, I would hope that they would know their own priorities.
I think it doesn't hurt to stress that, but that is part and parcel of our system anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why we do a departmental.
Well, I've been hearing that over the years. Well, what do you want us to cut? I don't want to make that decision for people.
They're still going to ask us that, and we're going to have to say, listen, this is what we think we can give you.
Thank you for that boost of confidence.
We can listen. I think, in all honesty, all joking aside, the guidance is important. It's critical, but we also know that we're going to get things left, right, and down the middle of the guidance anyway. We have to be ready for that. So that's where we expect people to explain what they're doing.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Stephanie?
I've been in this
I'm sorry, Pete,
game long enough that I do realize that often the guidance is ignored, but if we don't give it, then we don't have a place to stand from. We don't have a foundation for our. Thank you.
We can't lose if we don't play. Stephanie?
Thank you. I just wanted to address the issue of the overall instruction. I really don't want to say something across the board like a no growth budget as far as when people are requesting. But I am conscious of the fact that some people may be out of touch with how much growth could ever be sustainable. So, for instance, like maybe we say, unless you have unforeseen circumstances that we need to know about, don't come to us with more than 5% growth in your request, because we're already dealing with minimum wage impact, contract negotiations, whatever the things are. Maybe we could even say that we have a few things. But in other words, we want to kind of keep the door open for people to say, I think this would be a smart thing to do, to add this expense, or I have growth here that I can't control, and go from there. But I do think sometimes it's a little out of whack. Like, if in this year someone comes to us and all things are more or less the same, to come with a 12% budget increase is not going to be, that's just unrealistic. So I don't know how to say this exactly or how the letter should say it. I'd have to think about it, but I think something along those lines to give the idea that it's, that it's not a year to go crazy.
Yeah.
Well, we have to be self-sustaining, right? That's the way to say it.
Mhm.
So I
Right.
think there's a challenge with using percentages also. If we put some sort of a cap or a suggested percentage, then perhaps people who were being very fiscally careful and might have come in under that might say, oh, look at that. They said no more than 3%. I was only going to come in at 1%.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I can scooch my chair a little further up to the dinner table now. And all of a sudden I can get 3% and I'll look like I'm following their guidance.
No, I understand. And that's why that's why I said maybe something like that. So maybe you don't put an actual figure on it, but neither do you say, we're not going to look kindly upon any growth whatsoever. Because if there's a good reason to do it, or if it saves money down the road or something like that, I want to know about it.
Right.
Or if it's regulation, right? If there's a wage
Right.
increase, we gotta give it.
Hang on, Lisa. Hang on. Matt had his hand up. Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on board with that. If we can say flat spending or, well, Stephanie said, if we can say, flat spending or no increases or something like that, I'm okay with that. I think that's fine. I think if people give you what you ask for, we say, oh yes, well, it's a tough, difficult year, 3%, nothing over 3%, everything will be at least 3%. They'll give you 6% wanting to get 3.
Yes, I think that, yeah, that was my feeling as well. So perhaps the budget guidance is something to the effect of any increase over your current fiscal year budget needs to be justified in writing.
That's good.
I like
You
it.
should be chair.
Yeah, it's a great job.
How about this? We recommend flat spending, and then after that, any increase would have to be justified in writing.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Compromise.
Do we keep the rest of the items that are in the letter? Adding the item 5 that we talked about before, which was no any downstream increases. And then adding this comment that we just talked about. Obviously, we're talking in general. We haven't finalized the terms yet, but basically adding a comment in saying, we're asking you to present a flat budget over the current fiscal year, and any increases over that current fiscal year must be justified in writing.
I like it. I mean, we accept that. What Mike just said.
Do we feel comfortable enough with it without it being typed on the screen?
As long as people don't misunderstand and think that flat spending means they have to make up for some mandated 2% increase in a contract elsewhere in their budget. That's what I don't like. Is flat spending to me means zero based, and you can't, if your contracts are going up, that's unreasonable.
Right.
You can't, like, for instance, Board of Ed,
Yeah, so Stephanie, item number 1 says note in your budget request any significant costs that are mandated, such as contractual employee costs,
I saw that.
hired, etc. Does that cover that, you think?
No, I just think that the term flat spending could be misinterpreted because it sounds like, I mean, it's fine what you've got in the numbers here as far as that goes. I'm just saying the term, keep spending as level as possible, we could say, or something like that. But I think when you're saying zero growth or flat spending, I think it sounds like you're saying no increase whatsoever.
I think that's what we are trying to say, Stephanie. I think that's exactly what we're trying to say. I think flat spending is a good way of saying that. And then having the line in there, if there's an increase, then please explain it. That would very much take care of the budget increases for the salaries.
Okay, well, if you say they're justifying the increase.
Justifying the increase for the salaries is actually a very fine way of putting it.
Okay, I'm just saying that term, like, without saying, we understand some spending may be justified or some increase may be justified. Please include your reasoning, that's fine.
All right, I'm sketching out language right now. Hang on. Okay, so if we start at the top, I think this guidance should be the first bullet. So it would be the new number 1, it would just push the others down. And this line would say, the Board of Finance is requesting a 0% change over current fiscal year. And that any increases over the current fiscal year be justified in writing.
And with math.
Har, har,
Math.
har, har.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not doing the mask thing.
Well, if there's a calculation, I want to see it just so I don't have to figure it out myself. If there's a 2% increase on a line item, then just point it out to us so we don't have to figure it out.
So that should come in that spreadsheet, right? When they fill in their numbers on the spreadsheet, any line should show percentages, right?
Right. Right. But if someone says, oh, you know, we need to buy this thing so that it can save us money, I want to have a specific about what that means. That's all.
Okay. So maybe the word in justify specifically in writing?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
well, how about explain rather than justify? Just explain it to us. That's all.
Okay. All right. Explain.
It needs to be proven, right? Isn't that what you say with numbers?
Okay, so here's the current version of that line, the new line 1. The Board of Finance is requesting 0% change over current fiscal year and requesting that any increase is explained specifically in writing. Are we okay with that?
Mhm.
Okay, and then just as a reminder, the new line was going to be the new line 5, is actually now the new line 6. And that is similar to the previous line of the savings. We have a new line that says prepare to specifically justify any, well, I guess justify is the wrong word in this. Please prepare to specifically explain any downstream increases caused by new spending. Is that what we were saying?
Yeah, any related budget expense from your proposal for increased spending or for, yeah. I mean, mostly thinking about those examples, like expansions or big vehicle buys or something.
We had this conversation last year about public works vehicles. If a vehicle then meant you needed to have a driver. That's the kind of thing.
That's what I said, yeah, when I was
Yep.
suggesting this. That was the example I gave because
Okay, that's why it sounded familiar.
it did, it was just this meeting. But I do think number 6 ought to be that submit your budget part. This one should go under 4, right? The one that we're talking about.
Well, 4 already became 5 because we added a new line at the top.
Oh, sorry. Okay. You can do the numbering.
Yeah.
Make them bullet.
Someone say something? Oh, I thought someone said something about that.
Make them bullet points. You don't have to number them now.
Okay. Okay, and also Jeffrey had cleaned up some of the language in the bottom 2 paragraphs. It says very much the same sentiment, but he used some wording that he felt was better, and I can't argue with that. Okay. Are we ready for a motion to accept this letter?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second.
All right, any more discussion on the motion to accept the letter as crafted, thank you, crafted.
I missed all of that because my phone died, but I guess I'll have to take your word for it.
Huh.
I know.
I can hardly wait to start meeting in person again.
Should we recap for Jeff?
good idea, actually.
Jeff, are you here?
I'm here now, yeah.
Okay, so at the beginning of the numbered lines on the letter, we added a new top line that says, the Board of Finance is requesting a 0% change over the current fiscal year, and requesting that any increase over the current fiscal year is explained specifically in writing. Then the lines that were already on the page trickle down, and under the line it had said justify new spending that could lead to savings. We add a new line that says something similar, but it says explain any downstream or related increases that may be caused by your budget increase. And then the last line still carried on there. So it just pushed the lines down to add those two. And then we commented positively about the wordsmithing you did in the last two paragraphs. And we made a motion to accept it as crafted, which is what we're discussing now.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay.
Thanks.
More discussion. Marissa, you ready to call a vote?
Yep.
Thank you.
Stephanie,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Christina,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and Mike.
Yes.
Matt, I'm just confirming you said yes. My
Yeah.
audio got a little weird. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. It sounded like you said whoop.
Yeah.
We didn't think that was a thing.
Yeah, I know it's shocking that I actually said yes, and that, but I will affirm it. Yes, I did.
Thank you.
That's because we all work together on this, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Okay. So that concludes our new business on the agenda. What we have left is present to speak. So we'll go back out to anybody who's, I don't see anyone who has their video open. Okay, so anyone who is not showing us their video camera but would like to speak, please unmute yourself and call out your name. All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Good and welfare. As we know, we have a ways to go on the pandemic. We do have people getting vaccinated. But we still have a long way to go, and rates are a little bit higher these days. So I would encourage everyone to continue to be careful. Keep yourself out of the hospital. Keep yourself healthy for this budget season because we need you at all these meetings. And thank you as always for figuring out how to work it out and bring all of our different points of view together. And Peter?
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you
Good
all.
night, Mike. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.
Good night, all.
Night.